Hi friend, I just wanted to take a minute to invite you to our Lash Biz Babes Experience 2026. This is a one-day all online event happening on May 2nd, and our theme for the year is going all in. We are shaking things up and doing it differently than anyone ever has before. This is going to be an all online event as usual, but it's going to be 100% a curated journey throughout your day as we guide you through the mindset, strategy, and passion needed to go all in on your business to make it your best year in business yet. All lash artists, estheticians, and beauty professionals are invited to join us. There will be guided sessions, interactive workshops, a panel discussion, and big giveaways happening throughout that whole day. And tickets are on sale now for only $199. Payment plans are available. Let's go all in on our businesses for 2026 together. All the details and the link for tickets are down in the show notes below. I would love to have you join us online in May.
Welcome back to another episode of Lash Biz Babes. My name is Erica and I'm your host. I'm super excited for today's episode because we have another guest on the show this week. We've got Cheryl from Untamed Artistry with us. Untamed Artistry is your one-stop shop for all products and continued education related to your lash business, but with a nerdy and playful twist. And they're a lash brand out of Canada, and you guys are literally in for a treat listening to Cheryl today because she shares so much knowledge and insight about products in relation to growing your lash business, as well as pricing and storytelling in your marketing and attracting like-minded clients, as well as just truly authentically being yourself in all aspects of your business. It's a really good conversation, and I really feel that you are going to learn so much from it today. So get ready. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. First off, welcome to the show. I would love to have you introduce yourself and how you got into lashes.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, my name is Cheryl. Well, should I say my full name? Okay, I'll say my full name. Sorry. My name is
You're
Cheryl
good.
Peng. And I got into lashing because I was previously in a very, very different career. I was a professional poker player, and
Oh my goodness, I love it.
yeah, it's definitely an abnormal career choice. And in that career, I think I felt extremely burned out and unfulfilled. So I've always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So you know how when kids growing up, they would say, "Oh, I wish I am an astronaut," or "I wish I was a fireman when I grow up." But for some strange reason, little Cheryl at like 5 was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur when I grow up."
Oh my goodness.
With a
That's
little
amazing.
briefcase, like that's how I imagined it, like in my power suit. Um, so when I decided to exit my career in poker, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I don't really have any work experience and neither do I have any education that I can go out and find a job easily. So I thought, okay, I want to be in business. I don't really know what to do. But at the time I was getting my lashes done and I was hearing that you can get training and you can do that as well. And I was like, okay, I have a spare bedroom at my place, and maybe I'll just give this a try to kind of dip my toes in entrepreneurship. And that
Yeah.
way, find my it thing. I really didn't think lashes was going to be like my end all be all. I thought it was a stepping stone for me to accumulate some experience as an entrepreneur. And if it's my lifestyle, because I like that flexibility of being your own boss, making your own schedule. And then one thing led to another. Here I am.
I love that. That's amazing. That's definitely not professional poker player. You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, it couldn't be more contrasting to the business I'm in now because it was
Right.
male dominant, ultra competitive, and overall it's the complete opposite. But yet, for some strange reason, there was a lot of parallel. I would say a lot of what contributed to what I've achieved today is thanks to my career as a poker player.
I love that. I totally agree. I think like the experiences that we go through in life prepare us for like the person we're meant to be and like our
Mm,
businesses that we're creating. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
So, what was your experience like with building your clientele as you got started in motion?
So as for my career, building a clientele was actually not as smooth sailing as maybe I would like it to be or it appears on social media. Um, in building my clientele, it was really slow, but I picked up the pace relatively quick after a couple of months. And then I ran into massive retention problem. I got to a point where almost like none of my lashes would last for like a month straight. I worked so hard in building like a I wouldn't say I was fully booked, but I worked really hard to get to a point where I was making decent income and having kind of a consistent clientele. And within a matter of a month, I've lost pretty much every single person except for one client. I've been yelled at. I've been demanded a refund. Obviously, lots of people ghosted me and never wanted to talk to me again. So that was probably the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome in my career in building a clientele and just in the lash industry in general. And then after that, I then figure out I pretty much, you know, went under my blanket, cried for like an hour straight, not exaggerating.
I
Booked a
believe
one-way
it.
ticket to Hong Kong to visit my best friend and just wanted to run away from it all. When I came
Oh,
back, I decided to strip away everything I know and just start from scratch. I realized that my training never really prepared me to truly understand the science behind the glue that literally glues our business together, you know? So
yeah.
I made it a mission to kind of dive down that rabbit hole and really understand the adhesive that I'm working with and understanding everything that goes into retention. Then from there on, I was able to slowly climb back up. And I built a really special and niche clientele because at the time, my price point was probably like one of the highest in Toronto. I was charging anywhere between 300 a full set to 425. And so I wasn't seeing a lot of client. I would never be a person that can tell you that I was fully booked, making six figures, being a lash artist, which is probably why I never really market my training that way either, just because it's not something I've personally experienced. Um,
Right.
so, but I really enjoy the artistry of it. I think I enjoy the artistry probably more than the building the clientele aspect. And I enjoy the marketing aspect. And through all of that, I was able to find my way through where I eventually ended up, which is here owning a brand that really encompasses all the aspect of business that I truly enjoy. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of how my journey in building a clientele was. And the most actually unique thing, which is I think I would say if there is such thing as making a name for yourself in the industry, the moment I think I kind of made a name for myself in the industry was I announced to the industry, sharing my story about how at the time I was in a long distance relationship with my husband now. And that relationship meant a lot to me. And I think life, fulfillment, happiness, and freedom overall just always meant a lot to me because I came from this ultra competitive background and know how being unfulfilled and depressed feels like pursuing a career. So I made a really drastic decision in my business, which is kind of unheard of in North America, is I only take full set clients. So I don't do refill. All of my
Interesting.
clients are full sets. Yeah. So
Yeah.
because of that model itself, it also doesn't, it's very difficult to build a full book of client. But I was just traveling so much and
Right.
it just didn't make sense. And I felt this obligation. Like if you are doing refills, I feel this obligation of being available to my client, which I can't really fulfill those obligations. I decided
Yeah.
that it makes more sense since I am home at least every once 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And since I've nailed retention, I can guarantee pretty like great retention and consistent retention. So a lot of my clients would just come back and they would get a free removal at like week 6 or 5, which they still look like they have 20-30% of lashes left, which looks decent. And then we'll just start a full set. And that was kind of a unique approach that I had to business, which is not that unique if you think about in Russia. That's their only
Mm-hmm.
model of
Yeah.
lashing, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love your story so much for a lot of reasons. I think it's so amazing that you like, well, first off, your story's so relatable with the retention issues because
Mhm.
I think a majority of lash artists can relate to that at some point or another in their career. They've had that same problem before. And, it's a matter of deciding, okay, how am I going to move forward from here? Am I going to like stick to it and learn what I can and fix this and make this better? Or, like, am I going to give up? And I
Mhm.
love that you were like, had so much tenacity and, powered
Yeah.
through it. You took that time for yourself, went and visited your friend and took a step back and then like came back to it and kept going. And then also to find like a business model that worked so well for you. One of the big things that like I'm big on too is having your business support you in living a life that you
Mm.
love. And
Yeah.
so I love so much that you designed your business around like what was going to work best for you and cause, not let you get burnt out and, just what worked best for you and your clients. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
No problem. Yeah, it was so well put by you. It's really about, designing a business that works for you because we
Yes.
only on this earth once, I want to be able to look back with no regrets, but quitting was also not an option for me. So,
Yes. Well, that is so good. And I'm so glad because look at where you are now and helping so many lash artists.
yeah, thanks.
So what made you decide to shift into products and education?
Hmm. Education came a lot more natural for me. It's no surprise that I brand my brand as the nerdy, quirky brand. It's a lot of my personal persona being projected onto my brand, which is you can't help it when, you start a brand that's all by yourself and it's kind of personal. I've always loved learning. I've always and if you ask anyone who loves learning, what do they love more about learning? It's sharing what they've learned. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's that like oxytocin that you get when you are able to just like tell everyone, like tell people like everything and all the details and nuances.
Yeah.
So I do think, being a good at like being an educator in general, it's a different kind of breed. Just like being a lash artist or service provider is a specific type of breed that really enjoy being a service provider. So education came relatively natural. It was being pushed by my friends and peers because whenever for a period of time in Toronto, I was the lash artist that lashed the lash artists. A lot of lash artists came to me because they appreciate that, nuances in the artistry, but they also really like that I had great retention. And whenever they come, I would tell them everything and share everything that I've learned, about
Mm-hmm.
applications, retention. And then one of my friend, Fortula, I'm really grateful for her because she's the one that really pushed me to become an educator. She said that like, you really love talking about lashes and you are learning so much. Why don't you teach? And I was like, okay, sounds like it's right up my alley, and gives me more flexibility as well because of the long distance relationship and the traveling. So
Right.
it actually makes more sense. So education was a pretty natural route that I wanted to get into. But product was something that was unexpected, actually. In terms of product, I never really imagined myself starting my own product line. If you ask Cheryl prior to 2019, would you want to start your own product line? My answer was no. Like maybe I'll collaborate with a brand for like a special edition tweezer or something like that. But I wouldn't start my own brand because it didn't interest me. And well, so I thought. It didn't interest me.
Maybe you just weren't
Yeah,
ready yet.
exactly. It really didn't interest me, but I do see that there was a lack of great quality products in Canada. I'm from Canada. In Canada, as an artist, access to great product and high quality product, it's so difficult. Most brands are American. So when we
Mm-hmm.
shop in America, we have to pay duty, we have to pay exchange, currency exchange, and the shipping is just by the time we get the product, we're paying up to 45% markup than our American peers and colleagues,
Yeah,
right?
that's just crazy.
I know. And it was just, there was a need and there's a gap in the industry, in the Canadian market that needed to be filled. And then I came across an opportunity at the time, having someone to kind of help me. And I reached out to somebody to ask if they wanted to be a partner with me to run this. One thing I feel like I'm very aware of about myself is that I'm not very great at organization and task oriented thing. I am what you call a textbook visionary. I don't do well with deadline. I don't do well with, like the productivity stuff. It's really not my strength. And I had
Right.
met someone at the time that really had those strengths. And together, I felt like we can conquer anything. So I had reached out to her and say, let's collaborate. Like, let's be partner in this together. And one opportunity led to another. Next thing you know, and she was Korean, and it's perfect because a lot of manufacture it's in Korea, and I wanted to fly overseas. I wanted to meet the manufacturer. So it was a really perfect dynamic at the time. Next thing you know, I find myself on a flight flying to Asia, meeting
Love it.
manufacturers. But then afterwards, when we return from Asia, we have learned that there are some frictions in our relationship. And also, she wasn't as risk taking. She's a little bit more risk averse than I am. She came from the corporate world. I came from, some may call, the gambling world. Completely different risk tolerance.
Yeah.
So we decided to part way. And now I'm left with like a half finished project. Do you ever get that feeling when you start something, you just like, I have to finish it now?
Yeah. Well, you've like pushed yourself so far from the edge that you're like, I have no choice but to keep going.
Exactly. And I found myself in that position pretty much with the product line. And I was also falling in love with marketing a lot at the time as well. In my service, when I was lashing, I had a no talking policy because I just knew that I can create better work. If I want to guarantee these 4 weeks retention, charging at the price point I was charging, I needed to deliver. So like a silent treatment, which is pretty common now, but at the time it wasn't really common. But that's what I like chose to offer, a silent treatment. And so I just listened to books and podcasts, and everything somehow just naturally drawn me to business, leadership, and marketing. So surprisingly, I was quite equipped by the time that we were that far into the product line, that I felt really confident that I can do it. Even though if you asked me now, I would have been like, oh, that Cheryl's so naive. She's so silly, you know?
Hey,
But at
she
the time,
believed in herself so much so that that I mean, you trust
yeah,
yourself, believe in yourself, and you make things happen. That's amazing.
yeah. So it checked off a lot of my boxes and my interests in terms of, you know, marketing, in terms of like aesthetics and just being more creative. And then also perhaps building a team, which I really like people. And it just serendipity. I would say how I got into product line is
I love
serendipity.
that. It
Hmm.
just totally all fell into place for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And one thing that stood out to me while you were sharing was just like your level of self-awareness through it all, like understanding where you needed more help, where your strengths were. Um, I see that with some lash artists can be a difficulty in a
Mm.
sense where,
Mm.
their feelings of, oh, I'm not good enough, or like, oh, I'm not good at that, and letting them get overwhelmed with that instead of like putting their feelings aside and putting on their CEO hat and being like,
Mhm.
okay, here's what I'm really good at. Here's where I need some strengthening, and, like leaning into their strengths and getting help where they need it. So I think that's a really great example that we can all learn from.
Yeah.
So as I love the brand that you've created and the community that you've created with Untamed Artistry. One of the first times I heard you speak was the Lash Boss conference, like the very
Mm.
first one where you talked about like storytelling and stuff. And I just was literally drawn to your presentation so much because of how authentic you were, and I felt like true to who you are and your brand. And so, with Untamed Artistry, it encourages lash artists to be their authentic. So what was your inspiration for this?
Um, I love story. I love a great story. If I had to divide up my days, I would say most of my days are spent consuming something on TV. Netflix has exhausted every option for me. I am subscribed to every streaming platform, Disney, you know, HBO, Apple TV, all of it. I think what draws me to them, I used to have this negative narrative about myself. It's like, oh, I'm so lazy. Like, why do I like to watch TV so much? I'm wasting so much time on watching TV. But in the last couple of years, maybe that's what business do for you, right? I really think that embarking on the entrepreneurial journey, it's a self-discovery journey. It really allows you to learn
Yes.
who you are, what you like, and what are your core values and who you are. And I realized I love story. I gravitate towards a good story because I'm an emotional person. I think I'm pretty sensitive as well. And a good story just like gets me. And then as you dive a little bit more into marketing and understanding marketing and human psychology goes hand in hand. And what really, kind of navigate human psychology and connection between human, it's stories. It's the relatability in the story, it's the relevance in the story. Why do some people like one movie over another or one show over another? It's probably because we resonate with the main character a lot. We see ourselves in that character a lot. For me, you know, the one that I resonate with a lot is Queen's Gambit. I don't know if you ever seen that show on Netflix.
I haven't. We don't watch a lot of Netflix, but I've
Yeah,
heard
so
it's a good show though. I've heard lots of good
yeah,
things about it.
it's about, a female chess player, right?
Okay.
So it reminded me a lot of my career in poker. And then I've actually had a couple of friends who reach out and said, "Oh, I watched Queen's Gambit recently. Somehow I thought of you," you know? And now I even coined a phrase whenever I live in my head a lot. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's probably a combination of both, right?
Yeah.
But I say that, like, when I live in my head and being a visionary, you kinda map out everything in your head. I call it Queen's Gambiting. I'm like, "I'm just Queen's Gambiting this idea out." I draw out the entire roadmap. I know exactly how things is gonna fall into place, just like how she envisions all her chess moves, and I really enjoy that process. So I think that, like, in order to really connect with people, which at the end of the day, whether you're a service provider, you are a brand, or you're an educator, your main goal is to connect with the people that you are serving and the lives that you want to change. And the only way you can do that is to connect with them on relatability, sharing similar life stories, sharing similar values and beliefs. This is the reason why a lot of time sometimes we see why does this client will go to this style of artist when I don't think that that's the kind of artistry that I really enjoy, or I wouldn't really like that beauty standard, or but what they don't notice is that they have that relatability in their story. So to really successfully build a brand is to successfully tell a story, tell a story about who you are, but most importantly, it's understanding your audience story and how you fit into that story. Which character are you? Because they're always going to be the hero. Your customers, your client, your student will always be the hero of their story, because in that speech, I have talked about that, how, a hero doesn't have time for another hero. And you have to understand that, like, who are you? And we're really, as a service provider or brand, is the fairy godmother. That's when I knew that story and marketing really clicked for me. It's when I thought about it that way, how, we're really the fairy godmother to Cinderellas. We're not Cinderella. Brands that obsessively talk about who they are, or artists that obsessively showcase their skills and talk about how symmetrical their fans are and how great their retentions are not going to get as great of a result as people who celebrate their clients all the time, talk about the changes that they're making for their clients all the time. And the drastic difference between the two story in those two narrative is who is the hero, right? And when I had that aha moment, I was like, oh my God, I love story.
Yeah.
And I love how story incorporates into every aspect of marketing and business. So, yeah.
I love that. I think the way you put that makes it so understandable. And no matter, like you said, no matter if someone's a service provider or a product line or an educator, they're going to be able to take that and implement it and take that to heart. And really, I just love your brand so much. So that hearing like your process behind that, it just makes so much sense with
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
yes.
What is it about our brand that, attracted to you, that made you gravitated towards us?
Honestly, like I said, when I heard you speak at Lash Boss conference that first year, it was just you were literally just yourself. And I know I am just like gravitated towards that in people because it when you watch someone who's speaking and being themselves and they're talking about what they love, they light up as a person. And I think that you definitely radiate that anytime you speak. Like anytime I've heard you speak or seen you online, and like I know myself, I gravitate, and I think that gives other people permission to be themselves and feel comfortable being them as well. And so for me, that's what I love so much about it.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm really glad that you're able to see that, I guess presence is a calling for people to just like be uniquely you. Growing up, I've been called weird, quirky, but and actually not always in a bad way either. Like I had a friend who I remember we in a car ride together, and I don't know, I was just being my weird self as usual. And then he turned around and he just like, Cheryl, don't ever lose your spunk.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's why I feel like, I fortunately had people around me that really more people encouraged my weirdness and authenticity than people discouraged it. So that is where I got very lucky, I think.
Yeah, important to surround yourself with people who are like that too.
Yeah.
So, from your experience with curating a product line, so we're shifting gears a little bit here. What details do you think that lash artists should look out for when they're seeking quality products to use? Because I feel like, especially if it's a beginner lash artist, there's a lot of different brands out there now and a lot of really great brands, but sometimes it can be hard to know what to look for in them. So, do you have any insight for us on that?
Yeah, I really love this question actually, because this is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about at UA, and it's something I spent a lot of time thinking about when I was a new artist as well. I've gone through the phase of trying multiple brands and going from brand to brand and never really developed any like brand loyalty. So I would say that I will answer this question in two parts. First, I want to give people kind of a basic understanding of behind the scene of like what a lash brand is like, the difficulties that we run into, and what are areas that we can really support our artists. And then I'll go in to give you guys some tips on how to find the right brand for you. So the first part is that as much as I want, to tell you that, there's going to be this one brand out there that's perfect for you. Wink, wink, Untamed Artistry. But
Yeah.
the reality about a lash brand is that lash industry, as much as we are so involved in it and we're just deep in it, everyone we interact with and engage with are within this industry, sometimes we can feel like we're in a fishbowl, right? Like we feel like our industry is so massive and so huge. But when you take a step back, you would realize that our industry is micro compared to most industries out there, whether it's
Right.
beauty, fashion, hair care or anything like that. Our industry not only is new because we've only been around for less than 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in the manufacturing side is that there's not a lot of accountability. And those of you who are listening to this, that is a brand owner, this is something I want you to take away with. It's acknowledging that because our industry is so small and there's not enough competitors in terms of manufacturing, it's a supply and demand thing. So we need to hold the manufacturer accountable in order for them to continuously to produce quality product. Producing quality product isn't impossible in the industry, but it is not something that's consistent. And that's going to be something you will experience with every single brand. The reason why I want to give this little background to people is because I want to set expectation. I want to set the expectation that you're going to fall in love with brands sometimes. And actually, Untamed Artistry, to be completely transparent, it's going through this problem right now is that we are out of stock for a lot of our lashes because recently we had a massive shipment of lashes came in that didn't meet our standard. And I understand our standards are extremely high. So we reject products pretty, I guess, easily. And so that led us to being out of stock. But to me, I guess as a brand, our value is that it's better to be out of stock than selling things that disappoint you. So I just wanted to let people know this is not woe is me. I want give me some sympathy, but it's more just understanding that you will run into this kind of problem as a consumer in this industry. Your favorite brands are going to be out of stock. Your favorite brands are going to sometimes have a bit of consistency problem because the manufacturing side, it's so out of our control and so out of our hands. So the best we can do is every brand kind of stepping in together and really holding these manufacturers accountable and rejecting products that just doesn't meet their standard and quality. Do not give in. It's so easy to give in to say, oh, I spent $50,000 inventory. Now I have it, but it doesn't meet my standard. What do? I guess I have to get my money back, right? So um, I hope that the more brands that don't do that, the harder we're going to make it for manufacturer and the more they need to up their game to meet our standard. So that's kind of one of the biggest thing that our industry has a problem with right now is simply a supply and demand thing. There's more brands than there's manufacturer out there. So therefore, not enough accountability on the manufacturing side. So overall in general, I just want people to know that it's not going to be as stable as a beauty industry, cosmetic industry, or fashion industry. Now moving on to giving you guys some tips, knowing this, okay, what are you going to do? Do you just jump from brand to brand to brand? That could be an option. Or what do you look for in terms to minimize that problem? So you as a consumer don't run into that and doesn't affect your service, is to look for a brand that has integrity. Look for a brand that has a certain set of values that they adhere to. It's more about their action than their words. So what I would, if I was a consumer looking for a brand, is I want to look for a brand that gives a lot of support to the artist, whether it's in product usage, teaching you how to get the most out of your product, customer service, understanding that if something goes wrong, you can go to somebody and there's help and there's support, that you're not just left hanging and feeling like you wasted money. Now you jump onto another brand. And when you lose trust with one brand, it's going to be hard to trust another brand. It's like dating, right? Like if you get screwed over by
Mm-hmm.
one guy, you're gonna bring those baggage into the next relationship. And you were like, I don't know if I can trust you, you know?
Yeah, you're like,
So that's why it's important when we look at these guys, we need to look at their core qualities, right? Like, are they honest? Are they, do they have integrity? Like, what are their values, right? So start there. I would say start there. Start looking at a brand based on their value, based on the way how they engage with their audience, and then also how transparent they are. When I say transparent, I don't just mean like, oh, take you behind the scene and, show you when shipment comes in and how much sales we're making or anything like that. When I talk about transparency, I mean they're able to talk you through what goes behind the process of them acquiring these products. Where did it come from? And do they have a intimate relationship with the manufacturer where, like I said, they can hold accountability for the manufacturer? In our industry, most of the brands are white labeling. So what that means is that one manufacturer would just make everything and then you just slap your own label on there. Or sometimes they even do trading companies. So what it means is that, a company overseas would buy up other manufacturers' product and then sell it to you as a middleman. And it's very hard for you to know these things unless you spend money to go and validate it, go visit a factory and things like that, which are all the steps that we want to put into place. But having a brand that you can ask a lot of questions is really important. A brand that's, communicative. It really is like looking for a partner. Now, now that we're talking
yeah,
about this, I'm like, oh, it's so similar in like looking for a partner. Are they honest? Are they good at communication? Do they own up to their responsibility? Are they, accountable for their actions? And then I think the next thing is that you want to look for something that's, similar to your lashing style. Like if you are doing purely Russian volume, you want to look for a brand that really specialize in those kind of product. If you like the Russian volume 0.07, perfect line, but you look for a brand that mostly sell really great 0.03s and most of their clients do mega volume, you may not be able, because the consumer kind of speaks for the brand, right? Like they naturally will gravitate towards a brand that creates better mega volume lashes or create better Russian volume lashes. So I think that it's finding people with similar style, lashing style as you. And then I think the last thing is like, don't be afraid to try. It's part of the cost of running a business. It's like, sometimes you're going to have to try some brands and it doesn't really work out. But my biggest tip is don't overinvest into a brand right off the bat. Invest slowly, just like a relationship. Move slow and
there we go
steady.
again. Yeah,
I know. It makes so much sense. Now I'm just like, oh, yeah. Maybe it's because the love story, It's like
yeah, I love
but
it.
um
I
yeah, so if I'm looking for a brand, I think that's the most important thing that I'm looking for. It's really what the brand, stands for and the value of that brand and how they will impact me and my career and how they help me alleviate pain and make my life easier, and then how they help me grow as a lash artist. Because products, I'm going to be honest right now, except maybe like for our adhesive, because we do work exclusively with a chemist. Other than adhesive, I know a lot of brands are not going to love that I'm saying this, but fibers have improved so much over the years. Everything when it comes to lashes, it's craftsmanship. So we're going to get to a point, I expect, in the next 3 to 5 years that the quality of the products are going to have very small differences from brand to brand, you know,
yeah,
just because we only have a few products and there's not much innovation you can do to these products. They're just fibers and craftsmanship, and that's it.
definitely. Wow, that was some really great insight from, your perspective. And I think lash artists are going to really benefit from all this information and transparency you've given us.
Mhm.
Um, And I think with the advice you were giving about, what to look for in products and in brands, I absolutely love the advice you give. I think for me, I've gravitated more towards brands who I know I can trust them, like the owner or, the how they're presenting themselves in their marketing. If I can trust them and their experience and like their knowledge and skills, I'm more likely to buy their products personally, just because I trust their judgment on whether the products are going to be quality or not. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think definitely that if you are a lash artist, if you're listening to this and you're a lash artist who's wanting to really have quality products for your clients, the tips that Cheryl gave are going to be super helpful for you. And I think sometimes when we're getting started out or we're starting out, we a lot of artists tend to go more on like okay, just what's not going to break the bank. But I would go and say, if I had to give advice on that too, just that, seek out products that are going to give your clients the best end result and give them the
Mm.
best experience. Like, what's going to
Mhm.
help your clients make the most of their investment? Because the better of an experience you can give them, the better end result you can give them, the more loyal they're going to be to you. And really just like you're going to be able to build your clientele faster and like create a really good reputation for yourself from the products that you're using.
That is such
And
a good tip. I think that that tip is actually more important than the tip that I gave you guys.
well, all of it together, I feel like
Yeah,
it's going to be
no, that's
so
because
good.
at the end of the day, it's your business, so
Hmm.
I really like that.
Yeah, I'm so thankful you shared all that insight. I'm just like, I've always been like thought about doing products before, but the thought of going through and sampling and finding quality products is like way intimidating to me. And so I'm thankful that there are such bright, innovative people like you out there who have done that and bringing, the quality and holding manufacturers accountable. And I think you're, guess for the next 3 to 5 years is interesting. I've never thought about it like that before, but I mean, it makes sense, as the quality continues to get better and better.
Mhm.
So using that as like a segue into the next question, do you feel that using good quality products plays a role in creating a loyal clientele?
Yes, absolutely. I think that because when we think about creating a client experience, it's not just the symmetry of your fans and how great your
Mm-hmm.
craftsmanship is, even though product quality plays a huge role in that. But a lot of it is how smooth that experience is. I, as a customer, I would rather lay there for 2 hours than 2.5, right? And that speed, it's not always comes from how fast you lash, but it's how good the products you're using. The biggest difference between quality products and maybe subpar quality products is the time that it takes for you to execute your set. And then the next thing would just be adhesive. Like, we're really known for our adhesive. So I can go into a little bit nerdier with adhesive, but using high quality adhesive and knowing that the adhesive is fresh, which is why we small batch order all of our adhesive. Our adhesives are from time to order to the time it's shipped to us, it's 10 days. And
Wow.
that's why we can guarantee you 6 months of shelf life when you buy it at home by the time you get back to your salon. Most brands, since they're white labeling, they have no idea when the adhesive was produced, even when they get it. And then they're guaranteeing you an X amount of time on top of that. So a lot of non-transparency in there. And then secondly is adhesive is one of the most struggle thing in our industry, right? Because it directly affects
Agreed.
our retention, which is our business. And then also it affects your clients. Using poor adhesive can create a lot of sensitivity problem. And then having unknown ingredient in there just makes that even a lot more complicated, which is why our ingredients list is very slim and it doesn't have a lot of ingredients in it. And I am more an advocate of understand how adhesive work, understand how cyanoacrylate work, rather than go out there and search for a brand that just works perfectly for your environment this month or next month. So adhesive is one area that I just would never want to compromise on. I would not want to buy a cheaper bottle of adhesive from an unknown vendor or people who don't have a lot of knowledge about where the adhesive came from, how it's made, and how it's stored, and the stability of the adhesive, just because that is like the hardest part. I think that as the most liability that we have as an artist. So it's like that's the livelihood of my business. So I would not want to compromise on that. But
Agreed.
overall, when it comes to like other product, I'm also a believer of using as little product as possible. You don't really need a primer if you don't like it's not necessary. You don't need a bonder if you understand retention, right? The less ingredient and the less process that you add to your service, the faster you're going to be, the less you expose your client to unnecessary ingredient. And I think that overall, like you're really coming down to like your tools, like your tweezers, your lashes, and then your adhesive, and then your prep stuff. And that to me, it's all about sanitization, because sanitization equals safety. Like they just go hand in hand. And when it comes to customer service, it's all about that part. Like I much rather go to a salon and a spa that I can feel safe there. I even talked about this one time, like, just hearing my lash artist pumping hand sanitizer onto their hands and then like rubbing their hands before they apply any gel patch gives me a sense of safety.
I agree.
So I know that like gel patch is one of the biggest thing. Like that's one of my pet peeve, which is why we created like our gel patch, because they're all packaged in a like sterile environment. Whereas like I was traumatized once because I bought something from Amazon, like gel patch from Amazon, and there were mold on it, and I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my god.
goodness.
And when we find out later, as we're kind of doing our research and stuff, that sometimes because allergy to cyanoacrylate is very rare. It's around 3% of the world's population that have a known allergy to cyanoacrylate. A lot of the sensitivity that we see and allergic reactions sometimes, it comes from the ingredients of our prep products, such as a gel patch. So these are the area, and it's also about how you price your service too. Like a lot of the time, the differences between, let's say, a more expensive, I'll just give like the gel patch example. The Amazon gel patch maybe round out to be 10 to 15 cents per patch, right? And the UA one, it's around like $1. So there's a 90 cents difference. If you look at it macro view, yes, that's 9 times the price difference. Like, why would I pay 9 times the price for one type gel patch instead of another? But I'll offer a different perspective, which is more of a macro view. If you are spending $1 on a gel patch, you can now, let's say you charge $120 for a fill. Okay, now, because you're using $1 gel patch, you don't ever increase your price to $121. You probably go up to $125. By using a high quality product, from a business standpoint, you're actually making more money because this product justify a higher level of service that you're offering to your client. So you are, instead of using a 10-cent gel patch that could potentially cause irritation and have mold on it occasionally, you are now spending $1 on a gel pad that would make you $4 by increasing your price by $5. So there is that, like, there's a lot. This is why I love business, because there's a lot that you can do to play and manipulate what your pricing model, what your business model. It's like I don't know, it's like my what do you call it? I'm losing the word. What's that toy that like Lego?
Oh,
Legoland.
there
It's
you
like my
go.
Legoland, you know?
I love that. And that's such valuable insight for solo business owners, because like I said earlier, when it's time to like put on your CEO hat, a lot, I feel like when they price services, sometimes it's like, well, I'm just going to look at what everyone else is charging and then randomly pick. So I love that you spoke to setting your prices based on, I'm using really good products, I'm giving them a really good service, and taking into account like what you're actually spending on your products and setting your prices that way.
Mhm.
um Such good advice and insight on that. And that is so gross that you found mold on that. Oh my goodness.
I know. We actually taken a poll. It was something like 37% of the artists have seen mole on their gel patch.
Wow.
It's
It,
ridiculous.
Quality products, they definitely make a difference, and
Yeah,
finding a brand that you can trust too.
exactly.
uh,
You want to find a brand that have always kind of prioritized sanitization and safety, right? Because you know they prioritize that, then you know that you can trust that their product expectation is set a certain way, you know?
Definitely.
I have a shameless plug here. Can I
Go
shamelessly
for
plug
it.
myself? Okay, as
Yes.
you were talking about pricing, I just remember I actually made a free price setting webinar on YouTube. So if you guys go on YouTube, type in Untamed Artistry pricing webinar.
I
In
love it.
there, I broke down exactly how I think you should price your service, which is it should not be what you said, like look at what other people are doing and then charge accordingly. Like that's seems to be the default that lash artists do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in that webinar, I break down using case studies and stuff like that to really like break down to you guys to understand it, like I hope simply but more logically in how like pricing should be done, and that way you can feel like good because I think there's too much emotion that comes
Yes.
into money, right? Like money ties to a lot of emotions, and the more logic we can inject in that, the more at ease we feel about the prices that we're setting, because
Right.
the prices we set, it's not like I know our industry kind of preached that a lot about charge your worth, but I am actually a firm believer that the prices of your service does not equate to your worth.
I had totally 100% agree. I've made a post about this before, and
We're so like-minded.
we really are. I'm just
Yeah.
like over here, like, heck yes. Like, I 100% agree. And I'm going to get that YouTube link for your webinar and put it in the show notes too. So if you're listening, by the time this is up, it will be in the notes for you.
Yay! Yeah, like
Um,
even if you're other service provider, I think that it would be all very applicable.
Definitely. And like you said, and putting logic in behind what your pricing is, it totally helps you feel more confident in what you're pricing. Like if someone asks you for a discount or tells you your prices are too high, you're just gonna be like, okay, and move on, because
Mhm.
you know that your prices are set like that for a reason, and you're not basing your prices based on how you're feeling about yourself that day. And
Yeah.
it really, I see the price, know your worth, set your prices. Anyway, I could go on a whole entire tangent about this too, but like pricing needs to be more of like a logically set thing, like do the math and make sure that you're being profitable. I
Yeah.
remember seeing someone on Facebook say they finally added everything up and they made like $6 that year, and I'm like,
Oh,
girlfriend,
yeah.
like it's not sustainable long term. So I'm going to put that in the show notes, and I think that'll be really beneficial for everyone to go and watch.
Yeah. In there, I'll teach you guys like how to, you know, if you want to expand and grow your business, it all comes down to your price setting, right? Like you have to set it
Mm-hmm.
into your prices for room for you to grow and expand and hire people on board, you know. So I use a really good example in there. Like if you want to hire a graphic designer or social media manager, how do you price your service so that in X amount of time you'll be able to hire that person? And you'd be surprised how nominal that difference is. It's really a difference of like $8 or something like that, you know?
That's crazy. I love that. I'm gonna have to go watch that myself. So shifting back into, let's touch on your, like, the power of storytelling and marketing. You've explained a little bit about it, and about what it is. So if a lash artist wanted to set themselves apart in their area for like the quality of their product, their skills, their client experience, what tips would you give them on how they can use storytelling to accomplish this?
Mm. I think that, in the storytelling um, advice would be understanding your story first, right? Understanding, why do you do what you do? What kind of changes do you want to make to people's life? Like, what gets you up in the morning and decide to get to your studio, sanitize your tweezer, put on millions of little plastic on another person's hair? You need to figure out that first to understand, like, what's your story. And then you want to understand what is your ideal clientele story. Everyone has an ideal clientele, That ideal clientele is somebody that you're going to gel with, somebody that you want to see on your book and you're excited to see on your book every single day, And understanding these two people's story, your story and your ideal clientele story, and then see where they meet. What are your similarities? What are the things that you guys have in common? Why do you think you gel so well with that person, right? Once you figure
Mm-hmm.
this out, then what you can do is start making friends with that person through your marketing effort. What I mean by
Yes.
that is, if you're writing a caption, right? Don't think about it writing it to all the girls in Vancouver, lower mainland area that needs eyelash extensions. No, you're writing that caption for your best friend to read. That best friend, aka your ideal clientele. And it really needs to kind of like speak to a person. There has to be a human element behind it. People, this is why smaller brands are becoming more and more successful. There's more niche, boutiquey kind of brand, and we're trending towards the creators economy. It's because people want to connect with other people. They don't want to connect with a business. There's nothing that's attractive about connecting to a business, but you want to connect to a cost, you want to connect to a value, you want to connect to a person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
put that out there. Tell people what your values are and who you are as a person. And then basically, you want to imagine every interaction that you show up on your marketing effort, whether it's writing an email, sending a text message, for follow-up, or doing your business card referral thing. You are creating this for your best friend, and you are essentially telling a story of, that moment when you sit with your best friend and you guys are sharing a story together and you're laughing and you're like, oh my god, I did that one time too. And then you're like, yeah, like, you remember that time? That's the feeling that you really want to convey. And you can only do this by being you, by being authentic, by being raw, and by being, like, a good example for this is that if you're a one person solo entrepreneur, my advice is never say we in your copy. Never say we are open Monday to Friday. Say I'm open Monday to Friday. You know, I can't wait to see you. Not like, oh, we are now accepting booking for May. Like, who is the we? You are the
Right.
we,
It makes it sound like a big company.
Exactly. And there's something I know that attractive about coming across polished and established, right? You think that that builds authorities and trust. But in reality, relationship is not built on authority. Relationship is built on authenticity and vulnerability, So just, I know it's easier said than done, but like putting your real self out there when you're engaging with your prospect, engaging with your current customer, is always about being who you are. Because if you have to put on a mask every day to go to work, you're going to get tired. You're going to get burned out. You won't want to be the person that you have to be if you have to show up differently every time than who you truly are. So The first step is just putting your real self out there, understanding who you are, understanding your audience. And then in terms of like more storytelling, I think that like this will be my tips. Like I know a lot of people in our industry said, I don't like writing. Like I don't like, you know, that's not my strength. Like I'm not good at captions, you know.
Yeah.
I'm ESL. I came to Canada when I was 14. I was asked to write an essay when I only knew 10 words. So writing wasn't my favorite either. Reading or writing weren't my favorite. But I realized that when you're creating content in your marketing effort, if you think of it as writing, you're already starting off wrong. But you know what everyone likes to do? Text their best friend. And when you text your best friend and you want to tell your best friend something, you tell it like it's a story. you know you
Mm-hmm.
give details, you give background, you give context, right? So I think that like shed the mindset of like, marketing is a job, but think of marketing as a relationship building. If you're building a relationship with somebody, it doesn't matter. Like I used to make fun of myself all the time on my platform about how like, spelling error and grammatic error, it's part of my quirk. That's just, it comes with it. It comes with the territory. It comes with me. You love it or you love it,
Yeah.
And, just don't be afraid to be real and be you, because at the end of the day, I believe people don't come for the service, they come for the service provider,
Yeah.
So how can they make that decision if you don't stand out and you don't show who you are as a person, what your likes and dislikes and what your quirks are? Then you simply become a price tag. Then there's no difference between me looking at you at 120 for a set versus Sarah down the street at 115 for a set. Like, I don't know either of you. So the only thing I have to go off by is your picture and your prices. And most likely, prices probably matters more to me because most people are money driven and we don't understand lashes. Like, I have friends who think they understand so much about lashes, but when they look at pictures of work that I personally think are not great, and they're like, yeah, that's nice. I'm like, oh, okay. You know?
Yes.
So it's really, you know, personal branding, it's everything nowadays. Whether you are a small mom and pop, a one person solo lash artist, or you are 100 people organization, people want to deal with real people. People want to connect with other real people. And especially business like ours, like service provider, we are a local business too. So how you're going to get a lot of your business, you also realize it's through word of mouth. Social media is a powerful tool that you can leverage, but nothing is more powerful than hearing someone else say great things about your service and about your business. That is more powerful than the most perfectly edited photo, the most perfectly curated content. So focus on relationship, focus on connection.
Definitely. And that connection in person and online and in any of the interactions that you have with your clients.
Yeah, exactly. And tell some stories, like even though I have
Yes.
a silent treatment, like, how I approach it is always telling people like, people always think like, oh, you're so bubbly. Like, how do people take you just don't want to talk to them during service? But when they lay down, like we spend the first little bit when we're doing the lash bath and all of that, like chatting and stuff. And then I go in and say, I'm funny as hell. And you're going to laugh a lot during this appointment if we keep talking. But I also want you to leave with really great lashes. So just to do you a favor and myself a favor, I'm just not going to talk.
Yeah. Well, and communicating that too. Like we get nervous to communicate with clients sometimes, but I think that is such an important piece in any interaction that you have with them too. And the other thing I was going to say is that so I taught this free masterclass earlier today on my Instagram page. And one of the things that we talked about is there's actually a study done by a neuroscientist at UCLA. I think his name was Dr. Matthew Lieberman. And his study talked about how like connection is one of like the biggest predictors of someone's happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And he even argued that it was more of a need, like a basic need, than food or shelter. So
Yeah.
it's like so important as humans in general. So then when you're going to market your business, like leveraging that is going to help you build and grow and create this loyal clientele so much faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that there's a reason why like TikTok does so well, and there's so many like story time videos on there, because people really
Yeah.
like that, and they
I
like to
love those
hear,
story times.
yeah, they like to hear the context and the background and all of that, kind of like you were saying with like captions and things. And I think we can take note from that. Like there's a reason why it does so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one connects to cat eye 7 millimeter to 14 millimeter. Book now in the book
Well,
bedroom. You know?
yes, yes, I say this all the time too, because not only do they not connect with it, but clients have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes,
Because most
exactly.
clients, they don't know anything about lashes. Like they don't even know the difference between classic and volume. So if you're telling them like what you use, like your lash map, it goes right over their head and they scroll right past it because they have no idea what that means.
Mm-hmm.
But a greater caption would be like, my client Sarah today, went to Costco and, she's a mom of three and usually she want to go in like hoodies and stuff like that. But today she sent me this cute selfie and the picture would be like a selfie of her and just
Yes.
saying how like she actually looked super cute going to Costco running errand because she feel like the lashes just makes her feel like blah, blah, blah,
So confident. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that, and giving that example of a difference.
There's definitely a huge difference in like writing story versus writing information, I guess, like that was how I
Yeah.
would call it. Like you don't have to be a great storyteller, you just have to tell a story. It doesn't matter what the story is. And I think that that kind of goes hand in hand with, like, I talk about a lot of this in my podcast. This might be like a little like woo woo and fluffy, but I always feel like at the core of why I build UA the way I build, it's because I have this belief that people inherently want to be loved and seen. And the
It's
only
true.
way you can feel love and seen is connection, right? Like loneliness kills. Like there's a similar research that I read that they done post World War II, where a lot of like orphan children's were on the street, and they were saying that like a lot of children's ended up like dying from failure to survivor because they weren't touched. They simply just didn't have
Wow.
human like touch and weren't seen and recognized as a human because they were all like, orphan on the street themselves. And that just goes to show, like you said, like being love and connection, it's a human survival needs. It's more important than it's like just the basic needs. It's just like food and shelters.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing this, it made it really easy, I think, for us to grow as a brand because that's always top of mind for us. Like, whether our marketing effort or in the way we communicate with people through DM, our number one goal is that we want every artist that comes across our page and interact with our brand feel loved and seen. Because in this industry, there is some certain type of competitiveness in it. And there's often can feel like you have this social climb in order to be acknowledged, and we really want to disrupt that. And for a service provider, I think that if you just focus on making your client feel loved and seen, in each conversation you have with them, in each interaction you have with them, I guarantee you that like you don't have to make symmetrical fans. You don't have to like, maybe retention does matter a little bit because no one likes lighting money on fire. But other
Yeah.
than that, your fan doesn't need to be symmetrical. Your styling doesn't need to be the most expert styling, the most flattering. You will see loyal customer that comes to you again and again and again because they feel loved and seen by you.
Yes. I've seen that in my own personal clientele when I still took clients. I recognized that one of my strengths was like connecting with clients and forming relationships with them.
Mhm.
And I think that's really like one of the number one things that helped me build my clientele as quickly as I did and like as loyal as they were, was just by being genuine and caring. Like at the end of the day, this business is about the people. And I think your storytelling tips that you gave are so amazing. And I'm excited for our listeners to be able to use them and implement them. Do you have any last words of advice or inspiration for the solo artists out there?
Yeah, I think that my last tip for you guys is don't take things so seriously. Just have fun, you know? And and that's you allowing yourself to have fun. Too many of us going into entrepreneurship for many different reasons, whether it's freedom, whether it's the flexibility or the money, but know that like none of this matter if you're not having fun. And none of this will feel fulfilling if you're not having fun. So my last advice would just be have fun. Whatever you do, try to have fun.
Yes. And that all goes towards, creating that life that you love. And
Mhm.
I am so glad that you came on the podcast today. This was so fun to talk with you, and I'm excited for our listeners to hear all your stories and insight. Where can they find you online to go follow you and connect with you?
Well, you can check out my brand at untamed.artistry on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have an Instagram, Facebook like community, like a private group as well. But if you want to follow me and, for some laughters in your life, you can find me at a good enough human on Instagram as well, where I share with you guys occasionally how I'm having fun and
I love
hopefully
it.
to inspire you guys to do the same.
Amazing, Kate. I will have all her website and social links in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
Um,
Erica. This is such a, pleasant conversation. And I feel like we really do see eye to eye. And it's such
oh
a
my goodness.
honor for you to
Yes.
invite me.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to come chat and talk to our listeners.